It was supposed to be a quiet Saturday morning. Just me, my coffee, and my small fishing boat gliding across the calm water of my own ranch lake. The sun had barely cleared the treetops when I heard a faint buzzing noise. I turned around and, sure enough, here came a couple of golf carts flying down the trail like it was a race. It was the HOA board clipboards in hand, faces twisted like they'd caught me robbing a bank. They didn't even bother saying good morning. Instead, one of them pointed at my boat and shouted, "You can't float that here. This lake is under HOA oversight." I just raised an eyebrow and kept rowing. Minutes later, the cops were pulling up. Yep, 911 had been called over a man floating his own boat on his own lake. I could see the deputy was already rolling his eyes when he approached. The HOA president kept yapping about community rules and shared access. But what they didn't know was I had paperwork in my truck and a check burning a hole in my pocket. See, this wasn't just about a boat ride. This was about something bigger: respect, land rights, and a little deal I had been working on behind the scenes for months. And what happened 3 minutes after those sirens pulled in? Let's just say the HOA didn't see it coming. You're going to want to stick around for this one, because it escalates fast and ends with me holding the deed to their precious Marina. The deputy walked up slow, scanning the scene like he couldn't believe he'd been dragged out here for this. I could tell from his stance he already knew this was going to be nonsense. Still, he had to do his job. "Sir, do you own this property?" he asked, trying to stay neutral. I gave a little smile and pointed toward the iron gate with my family's ranch name carved across the top. "Every inch of it, officer, lake included." The HOA president jumped in, voice sharp, accusing me of violating community access rules, even though my land had been carved out of the original development long before the HOA ever existed. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to learn, was that I'd been quietly negotiating with the last remaining shareholder of the old Marina down the road, the one they'd been using under a lease they assumed was airtight. I could feel the tension building. My wife stood near the dock, arms crossed, watching it all unfold with a quiet calm that made the HOA folks even more nervous. She knew what I had planned. The deputy leaned closer and whispered, "They called saying you were trespassing." I chuckled. Let them keep talking. Because behind my truck seat was a file folder, deed maps, signatures, and a notarized sales agreement. I'd finalized just yesterday, but for now, I stayed quiet. Let them stew. Let them dig that hole a little deeper. They were about to learn who they were messing with. One of the HOA board members, guy named Paul, with way too much gel in his hair and an ego to match, stepped forward like he was the sheriff of some old western town. He pointed a shaky finger at my boat, still bobbing peacefully in the water. "You can't just float into the lake like it's your personal playground. This is shared HOA property, and you're breaking protocol." His voice cracked halfway through, but he stood there, trying to look taller than he was. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Instead, I watched as a few more HOA members gathered at the shore, whispering among themselves, clearly trying to figure out who had dropped the ball. The deputy stood off to the side now, arms folded, clearly realizing this wasn't his fight. My wife had pulled out a lawn chair and was sipping sweet tea like it was any normal Sunday afternoon. That seemed to irritate them even more. Then came the twist no one saw coming. A pickup pulled in through the back trail, tires crunching gravel. Inside was the Marina's former owner, Mr. Lennoxon, older gentleman with a smile that said he knew more than he let on. He stepped out with a slow, deliberate pace and nodded to me. That nod was confirmation everything was locked in place, but I still hadn't said a word. Let them panic. Let them believe they were in control. Because the truth was, they were standing on land they thought they owned, but didn't. Paul's? Voice grew louder as he stepped closer, trying to reclaim control. You can't just show up here unannounced and throw your boat in like you own the whole lake. This isn't some free-for-all. He motioned for one of the other board members to start filming, like they were about to catch something they could use in their next newsletter or complaint email. The others stood awkwardly behind him, clearly unsure if they wanted to be part of whatever was about to happen. Mr. Lennox stayed silent, but handed me a thick envelope, sealed and official. I didn't open it, just tucked it under my arm and looked back at the lake. The reflection of the sun on the water seemed calm, peaceful, the complete opposite of the HOA's energy. A few of the neighbors had come outside now, drawn by the commotion. Some watched from their porches. Others stood along the gravel path that circled the marina, whispering as they recognized Mr. Lennox. He hadn't been seen in months. Not since rumors swirled that he was planning to sell the land. Around the marina, Paul kept pacing. I'm giving you a formal notice. This isn't just about a boat, it's about rules. And if you break one, you break them all. His words tried to sound firm, but his eyes darted nervously from me to Mr. Lennox. I still didn't respond. The silence was starting to suffocate them more than any argument would. And that's when the real pressure started to crack through. Before anyone could speak again, a sleek black SUV pulled up and parked near the gate. Two men stepped out in suits, serious, clean-cut, the kind that don't show up unless something big is going down. Paul's smug look faltered the moment he saw them. He turned toward me, clearly trying to recalibrate whatever power he thought he had left. One of the men approached me directly, handed me a clipboard, and spoke just loud enough for the others to hear. We're here to finalize the transfer. Sir, title's clear. The marina and surrounding easements now fall under your sole ownership. Just need a signature to make it official. Paul froze. What do you mean transfer? This is HOA property. No, I cut in calmly. It was, till last week, when Mr. Lennox quietly sold it after the board tried to fine him into moving out of his own house. He signed the papers without breaking eye contact. The other agent turned toward the small crowd of board members. We'll be posting notices today. All HOA rights related to this lake and marina are null as of this morning. Any policies or restrictions previously enforced here are no longer valid. Paul's face flushed red. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. One of the neighbors started recording quietly on their phone, catching every second of the fallout. That's when the second twist hit. The marina wasn't the only thing I bought. And Paul was about to find out just how deep that check had gone, as the papers were handed off and the officials began placing notices along the marina fence. The neighborhood buzzed with murmurs. Paul stood stiff, watching his authority dissolve, faster than the ink on those documents. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I stepped closer, just enough so only he could hear. You remember that parcel of land your HOA tried to rezone last spring? The one with all the pushback from homeowners. He blinked fast, suddenly quiet. Yeah, I bought that too. He looked like he'd been hit by a truck. That piece of land held the HOA's main office building, the very nerve center of their power. I hadn't just bought their marina, I'd bought the ground under their feet. One of the agents chimed in again. All HOA operations are suspended until ownership disputes are resolved, effective immediately. Behind them, neighbors started whispering, some even smiling. They dealt with years of unfair fines, pointless rules. And now, the tide had finally turned. Paul stammered. You can't do this. But I could. I turned. And I had. I turned and looked toward the lake, where my boat still floated peacefully. All I wanted was to enjoy my land, my water. But you made it a war. I paused. Now I own the battlefield. Just as I started to walk away, Paul's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and paled. It was his wife's number, but she'd been out of town. He picked up shakily, and all color drained from his face. Whatever she said next changed everything. Paul's face turned ghost white as he listened to the voice on the other end of the line. I didn't need to hear it to know whatever just hit him. It shook him hard. He ended the call with trembling hands, barely able to stand. Turns out, his wife had just found out about the shady backdoor deals he'd made with developers using HOA funds, and she wasn't keeping quiet. She was heading back early, ready to spill everything to the board and local news. While Paul staggered away, neighbors began approaching me one by one. Folks I'd never met shook my hand, thanked me for standing up. Some even apologized for not stepping in sooner. Turns out a lot of them had their own stories, fines for kids drawing chalk on sidewalks, threats over mailboxes an inch too tall, or constant HOA harassment just for having backyard BBQs. Owning the Marina wasn't just about winning a battle for me. It cracked open the whole system. I handed off the Marina's management to a local community group that promised fair access and no overreach. My boat floated peacefully as the sun dipped behind the trees. This place finally felt like home again. So, when the HOA called the cops over my boat, they didn't know I was about to buy their entire marina, their office, and basically their grip on the neighborhood. Funny how fast power shifts when the right person pushes back. And sometimes, all it takes is one boat ride to turn the tide.